just don't, because it's really hard. 6 months into the project, the token got hacked.
People's emotions or sentiment gets attached to the charts, so it ruins the project.
Like, I want to be doing this for the rest of my life.
And we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Nalikes Podcast. I'm Talha Asif, your host, and in each episode we bring you insightful conversations with the founders and builders who are shaping the future of Web3. Our goal here is to educate and inspire the founders while showcasing what other successful founders are doing for their projects and startups in the Web3 space. Make sure you watch till the end as you'll learn practical and actionable steps that you can apply to your Web3 projects or startups today. Today's guest is Toli Marchuk. Toli is the CEO and co-founder of Trip Rewards. For the past 15 years, he has launched agencies, e-commerce ventures, SaaS companies, and most importantly, is building the next big thing in Web3, which we're talking about today. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today, Toli?
Doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Okay, so Toli, my goal here is to pick your brain and figure out how were you able to build and continue to build a successful startup in the Web3 space. But before we jump into that, can you tell us a bit about your background, like before Web3? Who's Toli?
Sure. Yeah. So I jumped into Web3, I think it was 2021, at the beginning of this prior bull run. Before that, I was doing a lot of e-commerce stuff. I had spent about 2 years in e-commerce as kind of the next step in my journey, and I'm just kind of moving backwards here. I jumped into e-commerce around COVID time. I was really, really successful there, and I think because of that, I kind of like stepped into, to crypto, into Web3, right? I had some extra money to play with, gambled, made some money, lost some money. But yeah, so there's e-commerce. Before e-commerce, I had spun up an agency, and, that was very, very successful. And it was a global agency. We service clients all over the world for web design, for marketing, for development, for media stuff. It was great. And so my history, I've always been an entrepreneur, right? I just find, that I can't work for somebody else. As a lot of entrepreneurs, that's kind of what they discover early on is they can't work for somebody else. Maybe you've, kind of had that experience, Talha, yourself, where like you kind of want to be the boss. Like you kind of think, what is the right thing to be done.
Yeah. I remember when I figured this out. So I'll just give you a quick story. I was 16 years old and both my parents lost their job and I had to pay rent. The first thing anyone would do was go look for a job. No one was willing to hire a kid who can score 100 out of 100. They want someone with practical skills. So I was like, okay, I had a skill. I started an Instagram page, starting helping rich, lazy kids in my university do their work. And I figured out in 30 minutes, I made $50. To give you a comparison, my father used to make like $10 or $30 working an entire day. So that was the time I realized that, okay, obviously there is freedom, but there is like, no one is stopping you for how much you can make. And I think you would resonate with that. Was something similar for you as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think my first experience with entrepreneurship, I think I was 20 years old and I was doing some graphic design at the time. And a friend of mine had launched, so this is when Android first came out, in the Android App Store. And so he had launched a ringtone app for Android where people can upload their ringtones. And it was all based on ads, right? So he was raking in, about $90,000 a month off of ads, off of this Android app that he created. And, and it was kind of like a little bit illegal because there was like music rights that he was kind of battling with. And so he decided to jump out of that, made some money there himself. And I wasn't a part of that, but he had purchased a game. Like he bought this like web browser game. I think it was called like City of Mafia or something. This is a funny story. And so he wanted to port that over to Android, just basically make it, a mobile responsive website with a web view that you can play on Android. It's just like a, browser based point and click kind of game. And he hired me to design all the graphics there for this game. and I worked with him, in his garage for like 6 months, and it was just an absolute blast. It was so fun. Just a couple of young dudes just working together, on something cool with users. All right, there's users there that we could interact with and kind of build for them and everything. And so we eventually sold that, and like that's what really gave me the first taste of entrepreneurship. Of like, wow, this is fun. This is a blast. Like I want to be doing this for the rest of my life. Before that, like I had just worked odd jobs, here and there, as a college dropout. And then I found this, like this idea of, I could do my own thing, do it with people that I love, and make money with it. Like, like without having to follow someone else's rules, right? I could like try out my own crazy ideas. Some would fail, some would be successful. And that's kind of where everything kicked off.
Amazing. So you were an entrepreneur since you were young? Or is it like you had that thing when you were a kid? Or is it something when you work with your friend and that's when you were exposed to this? Or is it something you had internally? Because most of the founders that I talked to, since they were a kid, they had these things inside of them. So what was it in your case?
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, I mean, like to take it back even further, I'm a Ukrainian immigrant, first generation. My family moved here in 1993, and my dad and my mom moved here with 6 kids. With I think they had like $1,000, in their pocket, 6 kids, and 2 bags of luggage, that they took with them, from Ukraine. They basically fled Ukraine because of the USSR, right? And so my dad came here with literally nothing except a skill, which was painting. Like he would paint houses. And he made it work, right? Like he was just always his own boss, and he made it work. Eventually it turned into 8 kids. And I still to this day really do not understand like how he was able to do it, right? Like how he was actually able to support this family. But his work ethic, right? His like self-starter, attitude was always a part of, myself, right? And actually all of my brothers and sisters too. I was doing paper routes when I was 12 years old, like door-to-door sales. Like I would knock on doors. As a 12-year-old, I don't even know if this was legal at the time, but I was, selling newspaper subscriptions, right, to make some money, right? I would mow lawns on the weekends, that kind of thing. And, I think a big part of the reason why me trying out college and dropping out, like it came from that, because it just didn't make sense, right? Like the system is trying to pigeonhole you into a specific career, and that's what you have to do for the rest of your life. What? No, that's boring. Like, what sane person wants to do that? And I'm not bashing on on college and education. I think there's a lot of value there, right? There's a lot of value in the discipline that you get, right? The network, the connections that you build in a college or a university. Same thing with having a career, right? Like that's fine. Like if that's your thing, like if that's what you want to do, awesome. There are times I'll tell you that like as an entrepreneur, you have these big ups and these big downs. Sometimes you have these really long downs, and and you just like crave security sometimes. But I just always know that it's not something that I would be able to sustain for a long time, right? And so my like kind of like entrepreneurial spirit, has definitely been around for a long time, and I really, really got the taste of its true potential with this other story that I told you when I was 20 years old with my buddy building this game.
Amazing. So fast forward a few years, what was your first encounter with Web3? And what was that? Because for me, it was like, how does this thing work, right? So what was it for you? But it was like, aha moment. Okay, this is what blockchain or Web3 or what crypto is.
Sure. I think it's like, I think everybody in Web3 right now has the same story, which is they heard a friend that was making some money off of some coins, right? Some low cap gems. And I had jumped in. This was, I don't know, March of, I think it was 21 or 22, just whenever the bull run started. jumped into, to Voyager, which is an exchange that is now shut down, right? They went bankrupt. But at the time, I don't know, bought some coins, and I put a couple $1,000s into them. And I would just watch every day, like, oh my God, like I'm making hundreds of dollars a day, thousands of dollars a week. This is kind of crazy. Just doing nothing, just watching these charts. And, it eventually went into, to lower, and lower cap gems, right? To the point of meme coins or shit coins. That's when, I started to get plugged into communities, right? The communities of these projects, really kind of, experiencing that ride of like, I feel like everybody's been there. Like you're in Telegram, right? There's a token launch. There's just insane energy and excitement, memes just piling through. It's like better than watching a movie, and so that experience was cool, right? And me being an entrepreneur, naturally, like I kind of looked around, like I had gotten rugged a couple times, and I was like, you know what? I think I can do a better job. Like I've got all the skills and talents necessary. Like I think I could do a better job, right? So I talked to a couple of friends of mine, and I was like, hey, let's do something. Let's launch something together. And so the NFT market was coming around at the time, and that's when we launched Bad Bears, the NFT collection, right? And so that
I would like, I would like to stop you here before you talk about Bad Bears. When you saw those charts, did you know why they were going up, or you were just happy they were going up? Did you understand the reason behind it? Like why would a price of a token pump, or what's the actual use case behind it? Or what? It wasn't until later you figured out, okay, why Ethereum is going up, why Bitcoin is going up, or you knew since the beginning what's the use case behind these coins?
Oh, I think I knew the utility, kind of the use case behind these coins for sure, right? Like there's a token called storage, or Filecoin. It was big at the time, and it made sense, right? It's decentralized file storage. And okay, cool. There's another like a mobile network, kind of token. I forgot what it's called. Then I saw Shiba, right? So Shiba was my first like meme coin success. And I was like, okay, this doesn't have any utility at all. Eventually they piled on a bunch of utility, but I was like, okay, this is just literal, just speculation.
So you got into crypto, you saw these charts going up, you made money, and then you started getting involved in these communities, because I think community would be a big word, the theme of this podcast, basically, because that's where that's what your product is based around. But then you saw some of these projects and founders, they weren't doing a really good job, and you thought, I can do a better job because you had experience in Web2. Because one thing I've learned is that most of these Web3 projects founders don't have the experience. They somehow got lucky. So you're like, okay, I want to, get involved. You launched Bad Bears. What happened from there?
Yeah, it was an experiment, right? Like Bad Bears was an experiment. It was like, okay, let's see if we can do this. Yeah, let's just do it, right? Like as an entrepreneur, like sometimes you just have to make decisions, and you just, just go for it. And I always, the big thing with this was that I always wanted to have utility behind the stuff that I do, because, speaking previously about, some of the projects I was involved with, they had no utility, just a meme coin, and a lot of them got rugged. Like, yes, I made some money, but I also lost some money too, right? And so, like I always want my stuff to be useful. And so we launched Bad Bears, and it mints out, and we get to work, right? It was always like an understanding in my mind that to get to mint an NFT project is a challenge. It's hard, but then to actually get it to mint out, that's a totally separate challenge. But the real work actually starts after mint. That's when it really starts, right? You've raised some money. Now it's time to use that money to build something, right? And so And so we started building a really cool gasless transaction system, right? So we had launched a token 2 that was attached to the NFT collection, and and holders could actually use this token in our ecosystem gaslessly, right? So if it was staked, then people could actually like spend this token without gas, right? And so it was just a crazy idea, and about 6 months into the project, the token got hacked and the liquidity pool was drained. And that was that period of time was probably the most painful professional, and in some ways personal, experience, I've ever experienced, right? It was like not just because this thing that we had invested a ton of money into is now destroyed, but it actually affected other people too, right? The community members. And what blew me away was how supportive everybody was. Like, yes, it was like a very, very terrible moment, but the community was still behind the project. It's still behind me, right? The team as well, and so like me, myself, I'm when I commit to something, I see it all the way through, right? Like I don't give up on people and I don't give up on projects. I want to see it all the way through, right? And so it was interesting what we learned from that experience, right? And that was that not everything needs to be on chain. And actually, especially when it comes to a community, if you attach a token to an NFT project, to a community, it can be extremely toxic. Very toxic, because you're attaching the emotions of the community to the ups and downs of a chart, right? And so with this latest kind of meme coin like meta that's been going on, a lot of NFT projects have been launching tokens, and I see that, and it's like, I do my best to support them, and Drip is a part of that, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit, but it's still very dangerous, right? To create a token, because now you have, not only do you have to support the vibes of the community, keep the project going, but you also have to think about the chart and the impact of the chart on the sentiment of the community. And it affects people because people are holding these tokens, right? And so that's kind of what we learned with the attack of our token, was that not everything needs to be on chain, right? And actually off chain, there's a lot more, there's a lot of positive things that come out of being off chain, right? And so Drip, we'll talk about this in a bit, but we decided to go off chain with this point system, with this token, with this currency. And we kind of realized that with an off chain token, you have more flexibility because you can integrate everywhere, right? We also saw with, what was that project that was building on top of Minecraft? Do you remember what it was called? I forget.
Yeah, I know there was a project, but I don't. Yeah,
it's like 2-3 years ago, they were selling like the land parcels and stuff, and it was super cool. Like we bought a bunch of those, but then Microsoft just said no blockchain, no blockchain integration with Minecraft, and that project just went to the shitter. Fortunately, they had a treasury, they launched something else, but that's with an off-chain token, or a point system, you can actually integrate into Minecraft. You can integrate it everywhere, and you could still make it a part of your community, and you could still make it so your NFTs with the soft staking, they could be generating these points every day, right? These points have a perceived value. No, you can't exchange it for Ethereum or USDC, but you can do a lot with it, right? And so that's kind of one of the big lessons we learned was like, a community should be a fun place to be. It should just be fun. If it's fun, people will come back. people will talk about it to others. People will engage with you more.
Got it. So I would like to stop you here. I have two questions. The first question is, now when you launched the project, what did Web3 mean to you? And what does it mean to you now? That's my first question. And the second question is, for those of the founders that are watching that haven't started yet, or they are planning to start, what is the advice that you would give them? And if you were to do it all over again, what would you? Because one thing you mentioned is that you don't have to launch a token, and it does not have to be on chain, because then people's emotions or sentiment gets attached to the charts, so it ruins the project. What other lessons can you share with the founders up until now, if you were to do it all over again, or for those of the people that want to launch for the first time? Two questions.
Yeah, for the people that want to launch for the first time, and I actually get asked this question a lot. Like, my recommendation is usually don't launch an NFT project. Don't launch a token. Just don't, because it's really fucking hard. And I apologize for the language, but it's really hard. And not only is it like hard, but a lot of this is uncharted territory. And also, you're involving other people, right? Like other people are getting are investing both financially and emotionally into you and your project. And if it's not successful, or if you decide that, oh, this was actually a bad idea, which odds are you are going to think that this is a bad idea. This was a bad idea, right? Like, we see this all the time, and I've seen very closely like founders that are just so gung-ho, about this project, and they launch it, and there's a little bit of success, but they don't make it all the way through. They're just completely demoralized, and it's either a slow rug or it's a rug, and it sucks. But just imagine all of the people that believed in you. Like, you've just let them down tremendously. Like, you just really let them down, and their families too, right? Like there's a human, on the other end there, probably with the family, that's invested their family's money into you. And this is your responsibility, right? Like, it's your responsibility to take care of the people that believe in you, period. And a lot of people don't get that, right? A lot of people just haven't developed their character to that point where, like, they understand that this is a very heavy choice to step into this, right? And so that's my advice is like, just, I mean, not just don't, but like, be careful, right? Think this thing through, because, even if you're just kind of selfish, that's fine. Like, if you fail, you're going to be demoralized. You're going to be demoralized. And like, imagine like when you get depressed, you're depressed for a couple of months, right? And you could potentially hurt your reputation, and that could affect you for years or forever, right? And so, like, there's, this is kind of a heavy conversation, but like, people need to understand this is a big deal. Like, don't just want to launch a project out of the blue. I did it. I was a little lucky because, like, it was the tail end of the bull run, right? And so it was just a lot like, I know myself, where I'm like I'm going to see something all the way through. Like, I'm going to stick around. Right? Like, I could have quit. Like, I had a very good reason to quit Bad Bears when, our token got hacked. That was a very valid reason to say, hey guys, I'm sorry, but like, this happened and we just can't go further. I don't know if a lot of people would do that kind of thing. So anyways,
got it.
Yes, long story short, with so with other founders, just be careful. Like, do your research. Become a moderator for a project for a period of time. See if you can join a team, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that it does not just apply to Web3, that applies to anything, right? Starting a business is hard. And on top of that, let's say if you're bootstrapped, then it's fine. You're using your own money, your own time. Even if you fail, that's fine, right? But when you are raising money from community through a token or NFT, or most importantly, when you raise money from investors, if you fail, it hurts your reputation, and like you said, it demoralizes you. But what I think personally is that the investors, the people that have put money into you, might forgive you if they see that you've done your best, right? Because it's how things work, right? So that's what I have learned, is that if you are going to start a project, make sure, first of all, like you said, don't launch, because it's going to be hard. But even if you do decide to launch it, make sure that you give your best. Sometimes the market might not like your product, or sometimes, because what I've learned during my own venture is that even if you do things right, sometimes things don't work. So that's the takeaway. But that's very interesting advice. So if you were to summarize, first gain experience and make sure the idea or the project that you're working on has a utility. And if you do it, make sure you see it through, like you've done, right? Things didn't go well, but you're still sticking with it. And that's what brings me to my next question is, what product are you working on? Tell us about Drip Rewards.
Yeah. So Drip came out of Bad Bears, because we realized that a community should be a fun place to be, right? We initially, had this insight. Okay, this is also when the bear market was kind of starting here. We kind of looked around and saw that communities were dissolving and founders were losing steam. People were leaving the space, right? We kind of understood hey, if, so Discord is where communities live, right? Discord is where communities live. Yes, it's on Telegram. It's also on Twitter, but there really is no place like Discord where you can have actual full conversations with other people. Telegram is I kind of liken it to cocaine, where it's just a stream of information. It's just intense, right in your face. Whereas Discord, it's more like weed, I guess you can say. And it's more
that's a nice comparison.
Yeah, it's more relaxed. It's more like home. Telegram is you're speeding down a highway. Discord is like you're walking, inside your house. There's customization options, all this stuff. And so Discord is where communities live. It's not on Twitter. Twitter is not a place for communities. Yes, you have connections between people that are part of the same community, but you don't have the same level and depth of discussions, and connection, that you can build with people. And so, we realized, okay, Discord is where communities live. Let's make Discord a fun place to be. And so we built this app called Drip, and just started to implement stuff, in there, tipping. People can tip each other with points. People can earn points by holding NFTs. They could spend these points in the store, raffle. They can earn points for completing quests, and and they could play games together with these points. And so, initially it started off as a solution just for us, just for Bad Bears, and then people started to knock on our doors and be like, "Hey, can we get this in our own server?" It kind of got me thinking. I was like, "Okay, maybe there's something here." And so we scaled it out over the next couple.
Before you go ahead, I would like to touch on one thing, right? So there's this concept of why. Are you familiar with this concept? Start with why.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with the concept, right? For those of you who are watching, start with why means that everyone knows in the world what they're doing. Some of them know how to do it, but very few companies and founders know why they are doing it. And if you have a clear why, nothing can stop you. So when you, the bear market was starting and you're like, okay, yeah, we need to pivot. You saw some problems and opportunity, but what was the why that till date that keeps you going? Can you touch more on that? What's your first? Because again, as a founder, I believe that you need to have conviction in what you're doing, right? So what's your why? Why are you sticking? What was your why when you started, and what is the why now that keeps you going? The why.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's. I was just about to say that it evolves, right? It's evolved a lot. The first why was, let's make Bad Bears a fun place to be. Let's make it so people want to stick around, even though the macro environment just absolutely blows right now. That's the first why. The second why was, okay, let's make Discord communities a fun place to be, right? Because Discord as a default sucks. The UX sucks. The solutions that exist out there with the apps and bots, they absolutely suck. There's 56 / commands you got to memorize or reference to use it. It's just terrible, right? And so I'm always thinking about the user experience on the other end. And so I wanted to build something that is a good experience to use, but also provides a good experience. And so what that why has evolved into now is that online community is very, very powerful. Very, very powerful for a brand. It's very powerful for a movement. That's powerful for creators, because these are your people. These are your fans, right? These are your people that like what you have, that believe in you. And it can be a place where they can build relationships with each other, build a closer relationship with you as the creator or the brand. And, in a sense, kind of not serve you, but like the brand or the creator can mobilize their community members and incentivize them properly, right? And so kind of like the why that it's evolved into now is what Drip does is it makes it easy to start an online community, and it makes it easier to attract and engage new members and to mobilize and monetize your members, right? And so up until kind of this point right now, we've been focused on Discord, right? Discord communities, making that a better place to be. What we're evolving into now is a way for online community generally, not just specifically for Discord, to help brands and creators leverage the power of their fans and their super fans, right? Just imagine you're a small brand, maybe even like a coffee shop or something, right? You've got fans that go in there, right? They drink your coffee, but you've also got super fans, which are the people that go out and they tell other people about you and they spend a lot more, right? And so that's fine. You have a little place where they can meet up, whatever, that's community. But when they leave your coffee shop, they're not there anymore, obviously. What an online community does is it gives them a way to always be connected, right? And Drip gives a brand tools to keep people always connected, specifically through gamification, right? We can gamify the online experience. The online community experience, right? To make it so people want to come back, and engage and that kind of thing.
Makes sense. So whom are you trying to serve? Because you mentioned it's brands and communities. Can you deep dive into it? Like, who is your customer? Whom you're trying to serve? And how, and then again, sure, how can founders figure out whom to serve? Because what I've realized after working with 50 plus projects as a service provider is that most of the time people don't know who's their customer. And if they were to just figure out who is their customer, half of their problems would be solved. So can you touch more on that? And how did you personally figure out who is my customer?
Yeah. So for us, really up until, again, like this point, right, this period of time, Drip has been for communities on Discord, right? So we started with NFT communities, right? It's been very successful there. Now we're seeing that pretty much every single Web3 project could use this, right? And so since launching about 6 months ago to the public, we're in about, I think, almost 800 communities that are using Drip, and almost 2 million members across these communities.
Wow,
right?
that's big numbers.
People.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't knew that. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and it's completely organically grown, right? Like somebody sees a drip, in a Discord server, and within 2 clicks, they can add it to their own server, right? That's the network effects of it. And so, and what's really interesting about like how our customer profile is evolving is, since we released our API, which allows you to take this point system, right? These points, this economy that gets created inside of your community, you can extend it out to games and to apps, to mobile apps and to other interesting experiences, to create a journey for your people, to go down. That's just different, and unique, right? And so we started in Web3, we're still primarily Web3, but what we're stepping into now is a lot of gaming type of projects are really, really interested, in drip, and also sports, and I'll talk about those. So with gaming, right, like most gaming studios, you have a Discord, right? Discord, is kind of like at its foundation, it's for gaming. And so the idea that you can, like, your players can earn points by playing this game, just like they do, I don't know, you're playing Candy Crush or something on your phone, right? You're earning, gems and diamonds and rubies and that kind of thing. Imagine that the currency of gems that you use, you could use it inside of the Discord community, right? And maybe, across the suite of 5 other games that you have. So now you have this interoperable economy that works cross-platform. And for Web 2, this is a kind of a brand new concept. For us in Web 3, it's standard, right? Like, you get some Ethereum, and you can use Ethereum across thousands of websites and platforms and applications. That's normal for us. I could send you Ethereum right now. With Web 2, yes, I could send you fiat, but that's about it. What we're introducing to gaming projects is this idea of an interoperable economy, right? Where people can like earn, virtual currency in game. They can earn it in Discord. They can use it, in both places. They can earn it by completing quests, right? So the gaming studio can set up a quest like, hey, follow us on Twitter, or watch this YouTube video, or XYZ, and earn some points, right? These points have value because they can spend it over here, on a skin in the game, right? Or they can use it in the, in the Discord for a raffle, right? And so that's where the gaming stuff comes in. With sports, it makes a lot of sense because drip is, is for community engagement, right? I mentioned fans earlier. Just like most Web3 brands, you can't really have a brand, or a business, Web3. I'm sorry, a brand without a community, right? And so with sports, it's kind of the same thing. You really can't have a sports team without a fan base, right? And so fan engagement, is a natural kind of progression of this, right? So with gaming, it's player engagement. With sports, it's fan engagement. And so that's kind of what we're seeing this, and looking further into the future, I don't know, say maybe a year or 2 from now, we're going to be approaching consumer-facing brands, right? So any business or brand that has, consumers, just everyday people, they can really just engage these people, in a much better way by creating, gamified experience of interacting with the brand.
Got it. So going back to my question, so if I were to summarize, the way you figure out who is your customer is by trial and error. When you started, you didn't know exactly who were your customers. You were solving your own problem. And then when others saw that, like, I need this solution, and then an idea pop up and you kept on iterating, and now you have a clear picture on who is your customer, and then it keeps evolving. So I think it's safe to say that start with a problem, as either you solve your own or for someone's, and then just with trial and error, you'll be able to figure out who is your customer. Or is there any other things that the people watching or the founders watching is they can use to figure out who are their customers?
it's always like for me personally, it's always best to solve your own problem, right? Like, you know, after drip, right? There's going to be a point when, I sell drip, or something like that, right? Um, like the next thing that I'm going to be a part of, I'm going to really, really be active, in that vertical, in that industry before I actually like launch something new because I always want to be developing something for myself. Like drip, for example, like I use it every single day. I've used it every single day since it started, like for my own community, for Bad Bears, right? And also for the drip community as well. I use it every day, right? So I can, you know, like in detail understand like what people want, because it's oftentimes like something that I want too, right? And so to answer your question, yes, you know, I think it's a really, really good idea to build something to solve your own problem first. If you understand your industry, then most likely other people have that same problem. They'd be willing to pay you for it. And so, in this next phase that we're stepping into, we're going to be focusing a lot on enterprise brands, right? And so I don't have any experience with that, right? Like, like I don't have experience with, with running, enterprise company. That's going to be, a new thing that I have to learn is, it's a bit more customer research, right? And like understanding like what like the end customer wants. Most likely what I'm
Got it.
going to do is I'm actually probably going to start something like some kind of business, however small, to be using uh, this enterprise version of Drip, because I always want to like feel what the other person is feeling, right? That's very
Having
important.
having empathy is very important. So to summarize, because in the previous podcast I was talking to Roy, the founder of Shadowware, he shared like let it cook. It's like whenever you come up with an idea, don't just start immediately, let it cook. And your advice was don't launch, but if you decide to launch, make sure you're solving your own problem or someone's particular problem, and then keep iterating until you figure out, who is your customer, and then you eventually find product market fit. I have two questions because these I think are something I'm curious personally. Is
Mhm.
you are building on top of Discord, right? And again, the
Yep.
whole idea of Web3 is that we don't want to build like people have built their products and their careers on top of these centralized platforms like Facebook, Google, YouTube, and if they were to go away, the product would go away. Now you are building on Discord, as Discord again is a Web2 platform. They have done some things with Web3, but they aren't there yet. Let's say, I'm an optimistic person, but let's say if Discord were to go away, how would your product survive? And what is your moat that you're thinking? You might have something to make sure that your product survives even beyond Discord, because now you will agree that if Discord was to go away tomorrow, your product would go away, right? So how are you
Right.
challenging that? And the next thing I want you to do is talk about network effects, because that's the keyword. Because if I were to add a point that Drip has grown because of network effect, it's that your customers are working for you even when you're not working, right? Because when one community saw 1,000 people saw it, one would like it. So if you can touch these 2 points, because I'm personally interested in it and people watching might also be interested. So why you're
Yeah.
building on Discord?
Yeah. So like you're totally right. There is platform risk, right? And even today, yes, there's platform risk, right? Discord could shut down tomorrow. That's unlikely, but Discord could like find something, or basically, if Discord wanted to remove our app tomorrow, yeah, that's a big fucking problem, right? And so this next thing that we're building, um, which we internally call Drip 2.0, it it will decouple from Discord, right? So Discord's still going to be a big part because it's a community platform, but there are other platforms out there, right? There's Telegram, there's Slack, there's like more kind of Web2 type of community platforms like Circle, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and so what this will allow brands to do is to pick and choose where their community lives, right? And so if, a lot of people prefer Telegram or they prefer Discord. And they choose one or the other because like that's where the projects, that they love live. But imagine that, a project could live both on Telegram and Discord, and you could transfer value between those two, right? So Drip 2.0 is going to allow people to do that.
Got it.
And so, yeah, and there's a lot of other stuff that's going to be part of that, like like a CRM, and a bunch of other stuff I can't really talk about right now. But
Sure.
to answer your question about reducing the platform risk and creating a moat, Drip 2.0 is going to be a place where brands, right, or projects can launch their community from, right? And at that point, there's a couple of things we kind of learned that will completely remove the platform risk with Discord, right? So if Discord want to shut down Drip, that's actually totally fine, right? Like we have a couple of interesting things that we're doing to protect us from that.
Got it. So the takeaway is that for those who are currently building on top of centralized platforms and those who plan to build on top of centralized platform just to get traction, it's fine, they can do it, but they need to think constantly on how they can be independent of these platforms and reduce the platform risk. Very interesting. Amazing. Yeah. Lastly, if you can touch more on network effects, like how is this something you did unintentionally, or you had the intention that I'm going to build a product in such a way that had network effect? Because if you know Naval Ravikant, who is the investor in Uber and the founder of AngelList, he talks a lot about network effects. Like if you are able to get the network effects right, you become a monopoly, like Google, Facebook, Amazon. So do you plan to become a monopoly as well with Drip Reward? This was your intention since day one, or is it something it was unintentional?
It was an intention from day one, and it kind of stems from our our pricing model, right? So Drip is a freemium tool, right? It's free, right? Like you can install it into your server right now. I don't know, it takes about 2 clicks, and it's in there, and you get access to like 90% of the features. 90% of projects are actually completely okay with that, and that's fine. What's powerful there is that like the way that this works, the way that Drip works with Discord is very interesting because first of all, like I said before, Discord is kind of a shit UX, right? The user experience is garbage because they give you so much freedom and flexibility to design it the way that you want to design it, with the channels, with the roles, et cetera, et cetera. So most people just don't know good UX practices, and but they want to build a Discord server. That's fine, whatever. But so what Drip does is it makes your Discord prettier, right? It actually makes it look nice and feel good, to the point where your mother could probably jump into a server that has Drip installed and actually not delete the Discord app. And so just, as the first thing, it makes your Discord look good. It makes your Discord fun, right? Like where you actually want to stick around, you want to come back, right? Like you're gaining something of value, this virtual currency, these points. And so how this leads to network effects is that when you use Drip in a server, right? Like when you see Drip in a server, like you always have the logo there, the name of Drip. There's a bunch of features in there, like a dashboard. There's, loot box, there's store prizes, there's quests and all this stuff. And every time Drip is used, you see the name Drip and the logo. And at some point, you're going to get curious. All right, what is this bot? You're going to click on it, and there's a description, of that bot. That leads you to the website, leads you to the Twitter, whatever. But there's also a button in there that says Add App or Invite App, and literally within 2 clicks, you can invite the app into your own server, right, and start playing with it, right. And so that's kind of the really powerful network effects. Is number one, the app is impressive And, it makes a, Discord server really stand out, amongst other Discord servers. And it makes, the end user curious about, okay, what is this thing? What is this tool? And it makes it really easy with barely any friction for you to invite this into your own server, right? And so that's a big part of our growth is that, right? The fact
Very
that
nice.
that's the network effects is it, people looking, at Drip, within 2 clicks, they can add it into their own server.
Got it. So the takeaway for the founders who are watching that have a product or plan to launch a product is first build a good product. Because if you don't have a good product, you wouldn't have network. But if you build a good product, make it easier for others to reduce the friction, just like you said. 2 clicks, that's very impressive. So in 2 clicks, they can invite it and they can test out if it works for them or not. Amazing. So just to talk about this, because one thing is network effects that has helped you had the growth. And you just mentioned you mentioned you have, I think, 2 million users overall. That's very good. So what is the secret sauce behind Strip's rapid adoption apart from network effects? Is there anything else that has helped you that you can share that with other founders?
Yeah. Well, I think with Drip in particular, it really solves a problem, right? So at the core of it, really solves a problem, which is community experience, which, in the bear market, a lot of projects, suffer with, right? Just like, how do you make your community, a fun place to be? And a lot of, community leaders don't really understand that communities are permeable, which means that members are a part of a lot of different communities and they travel between them, right? So a single member, is a part of a lot of different communities, and and they're going to stick around with the one that is most interesting, right? That they're getting the most value from, right? And so what Drip does is it makes you stand out, right, amongst all of these other communities that the member is traveling between, right? And so yeah, and it's been, I think our focus on user experience, it's literally the number one thing we focus on next to security is user experience, because there aren't a lot of great options out there, right? Like I said, even just the default Discord is kind of trash, so, but Discord is where communities live. And so, it's reflected in our net promoter score. We have an 82 net promoter score. Anything above 70 is world class, right? So people really love it. Really solves a problem. And yes, it was actually very surprising to me to see how much people love it, right? Like literally every single day, get a message from somebody, just commenting on the fact that they love it, right? Their community loves it.
Yeah. Right? So like it said in Y Combinator, it's like build something that people want, but you are building something that people love. So that's very interesting. So the takeaway here is if so the growth that you have is because of first you built a really good, if we were to go back, the first thing is that you solve your own problem. You build a really good product by focusing on security and user experience. And then intentionally you had network effects and people love your product. So people loving your product could be the reason that you're having the growth that you've had and you'll continue to have because you're building something that people love. So if I were to summarize it, that's fair,
yes.
Right? Amazing.
There's one more thing.
Sure. Go ahead.
There's one more thing about this might not apply to every single, to everything, but I think it's a good, thing for founders to strive for is making your product sticky, right? Like, how do you make it just completely indispensable, right? Like, how do you make it so that?
Yeah. I had this question written here. How do you make your product sticky? I forgot to share it. So please talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. It's actually, it's at the core of the actual, utility of, the product itself. What Drip does is it creates an economy for your community. And for some reason, economy and community mesh very well together, right? And you can kind of see it with history too. Back in the day, we had tribes. at some point you can't always be trading pigs for chickens, or bundles of hay for for some milk. At some point you have to have a lowest common denominator of value, right? Like if you look back at tribes, like some tribes, they had beads. I don't know, some tribes had, I don't know, gems or something like that, right? And so like every single like isolated tribe, like they always evolved into some form of value exchange, right? And so these tribes or these communities naturally adopted an economy. And so with online community, it's very natural to have an economy. And actually, we saw this with the number 2 most popular Discord app is called Dank Memer, which is an economy bot, right? It's an economy app that creates an economy on the server where people can earn points and spend points and all this stuff. I just have a lot of fun with it. And so that told me that, okay, communities love economy. And so inherently built into Drip, we're creating an economy for every single community. And, and the members in that community, they start to value that currency. And you can't just take that away, right? You can't just take away an economy, right? And so that's a part of, the stickiness for us is that, right? Like once people start to use it, and they do use it, they do love it because it is a good user experience. It does actually improve the server. We're seeing a 30% increase in engagement and retention. This is real engagement. This isn't like spamming messages. We don't reward for spamming messages, but like real engagement, 30% bump, right? If you were able to install, a widget on your website that reduced your bounce rate by 30%, that is like, you'd pay a lot of money for something like that, right? And so that's what this does for communities is, it makes it better. And it's very sticky because you're creating an economy like that people value. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. A couple of more questions before we wrap up. You've been called the Apple of Discord apps. Can you unpack that comparison? How are you an Apple of Discord app? I'm curious. Yeah. I'm personally curious.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So people have said that because of the user experience. It's compared to the other options that exist, the other apps and bots, it's easy to use, right? There's literally 2 slash commands. That's to tip somebody, or that's to drop points into a channel. That's it. For members, that's it, right? There's 2 commands. You don't have to go to to somebody's Git book or their documentation to look up like what's the right slash command to use. Like you don't have to filter through 25 different commands when you type in slash. Like that's why is because we reduce the amount of slash commands. It's all with buttons, and selects like what people are used to.
Got it. So if Drip Rewards is the Apple of Web3, then we can call you Steve Jobs of Web3. I think that would be a good title for the podcast.
Not yet. No, not yet. Let me cook.
All right, amazing. One more question, team, because like one thing I learned is that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you have to go with a team. So teams are very important. And personally, I lead a team of 15 people. So I know sometimes how difficult it can get. So my question is, how do the different expertise areas on your team were helpful for your Drip success? Like what is your team comprised of, and what skills or unique specific knowledge each individual have that has helped Drip come this far? And what is your advice for founders that want to build a product, and when they're building team, what they should look for? Like what are the qualities or skill set they should look for, without which it would get difficult for them to succeed?
Right. Yeah. So, I think it's important to understand that the DNA of a company always stems from the founders, right? So like how a founder is, that's how the company is. And so with that thought, like for me personally, experience, good experiences is very, very important, right? like in the way that I interact with people, the way that I craft my emails, et cetera, et cetera. Like I want it to be a good experience interacting with me personally. This extends into, into the company drip of we build products that create good experiences. It is a good experience to use the product itself. It is a great experience to get support, when you're stuck with something, right? Like the support is probably, the top 5 of all Web3 products, like the support that we offer, because number one, we care, but number two, we understand that that's lacking in this space, right? So we can, so if we can stand out there, it actually helps with our, our retention. So, so where I was going with that was the team, right? The culture of the company is critically important too, because yes, the DNA of the company stems from the founder, but it's actually the team as well, right? And so if your team is happy, like if they like to work on this thing together with you, it's going to trickle down, into the quality of work that they produce, the support that they give, and everything else, right? And so, like you're absolutely right that a team is critical, and the right team too, right? It's very, very important to take your time picking the people that you're going to work with. If there's one bad apple, it kind of sours the whole experience, right? Like you have to fix that, or you have to let them go, because like one bad apple's like going to ruin the entire, batch, whatever that saying is, right? And so the team at Drip has specifically been curated because I admire them, right? I admire like definitely who they are, but also their skills and talents, right? And so who that team consists of is Scott Mitchell, just an absolute rock star developer. He's actually co-founder and CTO of Drip. It's a rock star developer. He's the founder of Brawler Bears. Coincidentally, we both have bear themed projects. So he's
so how did you find him? You have a bear in your project name. Let's partner.
Yeah. So I've been aware of Scott even like before he launched Brawler Bears, right? I saw them coming onto the market. I saw their website and I was like, wow, this is really fucking cool. This is nice. Fuck these guys. Like, man, this is so cool. And so, I saw the stuff that he would develop, the games and everything. It was just cool. Right. So, I've always admired him. Like I've actually been trying to get him, to be a part of Drip for a long time. Even before we like officially launched Drip. And then like closer to launch, I had another conversation with him and I was like, hey man, like this is what we got. This is kind of the vision, that I have beyond Discord, like you want to be a part of this? And he eventually jumped on, and he's like, he is like you can see everything that's been built up to this point is like, like majority of the leadership of, myself, working with the team, with the developers that we have, support people. What's coming next? A lot of that is Scott, and like his vision, like his like enterprise vision of like, this is what we can really, really do with online community engagement. Right. And so he's just an absolute blast to work with. That's Scott.
And that's what I think is the lesson here for the founders, right? If you see someone talented and if you can get them on board, do them, because that's how I think companies grow. Because you as a founder might have some skills that they don't have, or they might have some skills that you don't have. So I think it's best to maximize your strength. And if you can partner with someone to cover your weaknesses, I think that's a great combination. And lastly, the framework that I use to partner with someone, because one thing I realized that I don't go into business with anyone if I'm not seeing myself 5 to 10 years working with them. But the framework I use for hiring is I'm looking for high integrity, because that's very important. And I look for high energy and high intelligence. I think these, if a candidate has these three things, you can get them on board. So that's something I use personally. Amazing. One more question. So this would be sort of an alpha for your community. Is like, what do you, if you could see drip, I'll repeat myself. If you could see Drip's impact 5 years from now, what would it look like? And what does it mean for your community member? Because if your project succeeds, all your community members succeed. So if you're going to share some alpha.
Absolutely. Just before I do, I have to shout out the rest of the team members.
Sure. Go ahead.
So Rafael was also on the team. He's been a part of this since the beginning. He does business development. Right? It's very, very important. Like I focus on obviously executive stuff, like running the company, and a lot of product stuff myself. Scott is technical. Rafael is business development, right? The one that's going out there and actively building relationships, right? That's really, really important to have somebody like that there as well. So, our two developers, Bladed and RPG, have been a part of this for the last 2 years. So they're absolutely rock stars. The entire support team with Rock and with Tyler and everybody else there is key. So, if they're watching this, I love you guys. Drip in 5 years. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's kind of a really interesting exercise to have, because Drip is only 6 months old as far as the public launch, right? Like, it's only 6 months old. We're still a baby, right? Like, this baby it's just learning to crawl, right? Like, it's not walking, it's not running, it's not talking. It's just learning to crawl. And I don't really completely know what it's going to evolve into, but just kind of looking at what we're building now, which will bring this baby to the point of walking, right? So now this baby's going to be walking and talking. Drip is going to be the tool that a brand or a creator uses when they're ready to start an online community, right? Like when they're ready to bring their customers, their consumers, their fans, their audience together and properly mobilize these people. That's where they go. It's to Drip, right? And so like the applications for that are a lot bigger than it seems, right? A big part of what we're going to be tackling here in probably the next year or two is disrupting the traditional loyalty market, right? When you go to your favorite coffee shop, right? You buy a coffee and you get some points, or you get a stamp or something, get, 10 points and you can get a free coffee. Cool. That's fucking boring. That's really boring, right? Like these points people earn, it should be much more flexible than that, right? These points, I should be able to tip you, Talha, as a thank you, right? Here's my Starbucks rewards. Like I got 500 points. Like, here you go, bro. Like, get yourself 10 coffees or something. I should be able to do that. I should be able to use these points in other ways, to buy, skin in a game, right? I should be able to go in, into the Starbucks community, and earn more points, in other ways besides purchasing, right? And so the idea is this is a big picture. We think that a lot of brands are actually very boring. They're just not interesting. Like, yes, the products might be cool, whatever, but the overall brand experience is boring. And so we want to gamify brands, right? Like, we want to make the experience of participating in a brand's ecosystem more like a game than a transaction, right? And this journey that you're going to be taken down, it feels like a game, right? Like, you're going to be earning a virtual currency, right? And you've got a lot of different options, the routes you want to go. It's kind of like an open world game for a brand, right? You could choose, okay, like I hear that Nike like is a blast, right? So if I buy these shoes, or if I'm following them, and on all their socials, I'm going to get some points. Okay, these points I can go and I can unlock this thing over here. You know, maybe it's access to something, or maybe it's, I don't know, discount, or maybe it's, I don't know, the next step in the journey or something like that, right? And so, like, that's the big picture vision is, you know, is that we're going to be gamifying, brands to build more loyalty.
That's very ambitious, and I hope you do that. Lastly, I would want you to shill yourself. So let's say if someone wants to use Drip today in their project, tell them step-by-step process. What do they do with this after watching this podcast? I'll add a link to your website below, but if you can give them like a step-by-step guide, how they can use Drip.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's 2 steps. So go to our website, drip.re, which stands for Drip Rewards, drip.re. And there's a button at the top that is, I don't know, get Drip or something like that. Just press that button and it'll invite it into your server. And that's
Amazing.
it.
And that's it. 2 steps.
2 steps.
Amazing.
Low friction. Cool. Low friction. That's important.
Low friction. Amazing. And Toli, if your last thoughts, like for the founders watching, if you were to just give any advice that you think if someone would have given you a few years ago before you started would have been helpful. So what would be that advice before we wrap this up for the founders watching?
Yeah, I think it would really be like build something for yourself. Like build something for yourself, right? Like solve your own problem first. Because odds are other people have that problem. You know, and they'd be willing to pay you for it. And so just do that first. And, you know, like you said, like the other, you know, interviewee that you had, let it cook, right? As people start to use it, your product, make sure you have relationships with your early customers. Discord is a great place to have relationships, you know, with your customers. You know, you can DM people directly. You can have chats. You can have events. Do that, right? Really, really important to get feedback from people about like what they want, what they need, and what they're running into. And you're actually also going to be building a fan base for your product, right? And if you have a fan base, you know, you can mobilize your fans because they love you. And so like, yeah, so definitely create the product for yourself to solve your own problem. Make sure you're speaking to your people. And what's going to happen naturally after a few months is you're going to gain a lot of insight into a bigger problem that is yet to be solved, right? Like you're solving a small problem, but you're going to get access to a lot of brains that are actively using, you know, something that you just built, you know, and the information you get from these brains is going to help you to paint the picture of a bigger problem that exists, which will be the next version of your product, you know. And so that's the advice, you know, as far as, you know, product development is, you know, is that, you know, to build it for yourself, you know, something that you would use every day, you know, to solve your own problem, speak to your customers and iterate.
Yeah, that's what I learned in YC as well. Talk to your customers and ship features. I think that's the 2 things founders should be doing: shipping features and then talking to customers.
Yes,
amazing.
exactly.
Is there anything else you would want to share before we wrap up?
I don't think so, man. I don't think so.
Thank you so much for coming on. This wraps up the episode. I hope you found this conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode.